Shalawam, and welcome back to The Hidden Chosen. I am Hadassah Batsai One, and welcome back to Prophetic Dreams and Visions. We're now in part 4 called Open Eyed Visions. Now, in part 1, we looked at dreams. Part 2, we looked at nighttime dreams, or nighttime visions rather. And then in part 3, we looked at transit. So now we're going to look at open eye visions. So let's get started. There were many other forefathers who had profound visions, which gave them instructions and directions concerning the well-being of Habanai Yashua. Visions can occur when we are taken to a place in the spiritual realm, or they can occur when the appearance of angelic hosts and Alahayam enter into our earthly dimension to commune with us. You will notice that only the person who the message via the vision is meant for will see and hear the messengers, even if the recipient was surrounded by other people. So you could be in a crowded mall, you could be on a bus, on a train, on an airplane, you could be anywhere where there are people. And if Alahayam wants to bring you into a vision, then it will happen. But yet the people around you will not be affected. The people around you will not see what you're seeing, and they will not hear what you're hearing, because visions aren't only about seeing, it's also about hearing. All right, so let's read on. Yahazakal, the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Alahayam. So he was with the captives by the river Chebar, and only he saw the heavens open. Only he saw Alahayam. Let's read on, looking at Yahazakaal, chapter 8, verse 1. And it came to pass in the 6th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house, and the elders of Yahweh, that would be the southern kingdom, the elders of the southern kingdom sat before me, that the hand of Yahweh Alahayam fell there upon me. So that expression, the hand of Alahayam Yahweh fell upon me, means that the power of Alahayam fell upon him. And the power fell upon him because there was something that Alahayam wanted to do with him. So let's read on. Verse 2. Then I beheld, again that expression, he had a vision. Okay? And lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward, fire, and from his loins even upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. So Alahayam wanted to bring him into a vision. He wanted to show him his likeness. And this could only be done in the spiritual realm. So to show him his likeness, his hand fell upon him. His power fell upon him. All right. And when the power of Alahayam falls upon us, it is to bring us to a place, or to prepare us to receive him in our place, in our space, in our earthly dimension. Okay? Because we are two different people. Alahayam is spiritual. We are earthly, yet we have his spirit within us. So we're both earthly and we are also spiritual. All right? This is the uniqueness of who we are when we become believers. Adam and Hawa, when they were created to be both physical and spiritual. But because there was no sin, They were easy to commune. It was easy for them to commune with Alahayam without having to go into a vision, without having to to be taken anywhere. They saw everything. He made everything plain to them. It was the only time that Adam was put in a trance was to take out the rib out of Adam and build a woman around it called Hawa. And Alahayam placed him in a trance for that experience. Okay? So he when his power falls upon us, it is to allow us to experience him, to experience the spiritual realm, because we cannot automatically enter into the spiritual realm just like that, especially where he is. Now we can pray, we can praise, we can fast and pray, and then he will cause us to be able to enter into the spiritual realm. But then there are times when we are not praying, we're just out and about, and his hand falls upon us. His power falls upon us because he wants to bring us into the spiritual realm, which is what we call an open eye vision. Or it could just be a nighttime vision or trance. But trances, you would not see many people today. In fact, the only people that will claim that they have had a trance are people that have been using psychedelic drugs and they've had an interaction with demonic beings. But trances, according to the word of Alahayam, is something very exclusive. All right, so let's be clear about that. They're very, very exclusive. They're not the same as an open eye vision. When you are in a trance, it's almost like you are in a hypnotic state. You're in a deep sleep, but you're not sleeping. All right? So that's the difference. And that's why you will not hear of our forefathers speaking about being in a trance, because it is a very exclusive type of vision where fantastical things happen. And I gave examples of those two times that something like two fantastical things happen with Abraham and with Adam. All right? But when we're talking about open eye visions now, Alahayam has reserved people that he's given this gift to for where they're experiencing these things. All right? When Alahayam draws us into a vision, the world around us will either seem to pause, as if someone pressed a pause button, or activities around you will slow down as if in slow motion mode. And this will be very noticeable, or all activities and people will vanish temporarily. So there are three ways in which you can tell that you're in a vision. One, it's like the world has paused, like everything is paused. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. Two, everything moves in a slow motion mode. Or three, everything around you has vanished. We're talking about people, cars, what have you, vanish. You're just there in the same space, in the same place, but there's no one around you. Let's say you're in a mall and Alahayam wanted to choose this third method in order to bring you into a vision. You be in a mall filled with people, all of a sudden the people just vanished. All right? And as quickly as they have vanished, they'll come back once the vision is over. And that's because Alahayam has done this thing. Now, at first, it could be quite scary. If you don't know, if you've never experienced it before, it could be quite, it could be quite scary. Now, I remember, and I'm not talking about something That has never happened to me before. It has happened to me, right? And the first time, it was if someone pressed pause and then he spoke to me in an audible voice. The second time, everything was slowed down in slow motion. And yet, that audible voice spoke to me again. All right? So both of these they have happened to me before. And it was a message for me. It wasn't a message to anyone or for anyone else, but for me. He wanted to get my attention and he got it. And I was a sinner back in those days. This was the time where I had to make a choice whether I was going to come and serve him or continue on that path of destruction. And he came and he presented himself to me. Now, I didn't see a physical form, but I heard an audible voice. As clear as you can hear me speaking, I heard a voice speaking to me. And even though I didn't see anything, it is still a vision. All right? So you have those as well. And that's why as we go on in this study, you're going to hear when the prophets speak about thus says Yahweh, they had a vision. The audible voice spoke to them. Okay, let's read on. And although the world around us may seem to have paused or slowed down or even vanished temporarily, when the vision is over, life will resume without missing a beat. So it is only temporarily. And one thing you have to realize that even though we may experience a great deal of imagery in that experience, it was only in a blink of an eye that this took place. Because remember, Alahayam exists in eternity. We exist in time. And when he pauses time for us, when he's bringing us into a vision, that does not affect time. Okay? And that's why when we come out of the vision, it's as if we just blinked our eye. And that's why it will feel as if, hey, I experienced this extremely profound vision, and it's as if no one around me has seen or heard anything. It felt like time stood still for me. And yet, the clock is still at the same place when I looked at it. The hands of the clock is still, or if there are numbers on a digital screen somewhere, the numbers didn't change. Because in a twinkling of an eye, in a blink of an eye, Alahayam can insert us or cause his power to fall upon us so that we can experience this vision within the time frame of a blink of an eye. If you understand what I'm saying. And so we will not miss a beat. The world will not miss a beat. And yet we have this great message. All these images that we were shown, all these words that were spoken to us, and yet it was in less than a second that this thing took place. Even the fact that people vanished, or everything slowed down or paused, it was within that blink of an eye that this took place. We can't understand eternity until we are transformed forever. Then we will understand eternity. We are finite beings, and thus we cannot understand the mysteries of eternity and those who dwell in eternity. But it's amazing though. It's amazing. You will be the only one who will remember experiencing this strange phenomenon, while the people around you will continue on as if nothing happened, because to them nothing happened. This is the awesomeness of Alahayam, to be able to pause time for us, but it continues on for the people around us, and yet we also will not lose a second of time. Why? Because when we are in a vision, we're no longer in time, but in eternity, where Alahayam dwells, where there's no time. So there's no time in eternity. And yet we will not skip 1 second of time when the vision is over. Everything will happen within that second. All right? The examples given above, the pause button, events slowing down, or people vanishing from our view, are the beginnings of being given a vision of significant importance. Then there are other visions which seem to be like watching a moving picture, a movement of events or symbolic images. While you're awake and very much aware. So you're sitting there, all of a sudden things just started. You're starting seeing things like a television screen before your eyes. That has happened to me too. All right? Or sometimes you're reading the scriptures and all of a sudden you're getting a vision of everything that happened way back in our forefathers' days, and it helps you to understand the scriptures clear. That happened to me too. In fact, it happens for me. This is how I understand the scriptures. This is how Alahayam chooses to teach me. All right? The words on the page, they come alive for me. And I'm speaking literally alive. Let's read on. Then there are other, I read that already. Not everyone will experience visions, unlike dreams, as visions are given to those who Alahayam has chosen to give this gift. It is his way of communicating to us in this earthly dimension, to sometimes bring us into his realm called eternity, to speak to us there, or to step into our dimension here on the earth. So he's bringing eternity with him. And when he comes into our area where we are, when he wants to commune with us now, even though he comes down, he wants to bring us into eternity there with him, so that we can speak to him, or he can speak to us rather. All right? Because if you think about it, our forefathers, when they were in the wilderness, he was there with them. Okay? He was right in the middle, in the midst of our people. Now, were they dwelling in eternity? Well, think about it for a second. They were still existing in time. But the awesomeness of him existing in our forefathers' midst caused phenomenal things to happen for them. One, their shoes never wore out. Two, their clothing never wore out. They wore the same clothes and they were same shoes. All right? And there were other phenomenal things that happened for them, because the residual effect of him being in the midst of our forefathers caused these things to happen for them. That affected them personally. And not only that, they were also safe from their enemies all around them. Fear fell upon their enemies. So there is something when Alahayam dwells with us. We don't have to be in a vision to see the effects of eternity in our presence, in our realm, in our space, the evidence will only become abundantly clear when people start announcing, how come everything good seems to be happening for you? Or how come this? Or how come that? How come that doesn't happen for me? All right? The awesomeness of eternity in our presence is reflected. We absorb some of its power. And that's why it is so absolutely important for us to be always in the presence of Alahayam Yahweh, because that's how we become endowed with his power. And that's how we can defeat the darkness. So it's not only about getting a vision, it's about having the presence of Alahayam constantly in our midst, dwelling in us even. Because it is that power that will chase away the darkness. All right, people want to chase visions because they think visions make them seem prophetic, make them seem important, but they have missed the importance of what having a vision is all about. It's not about being a prophet, and it's not about being able to speak, saying, thus says the Yahweh or Yahuwah, whatever words they use. Thus saith the Lord. Because they feel that when they say these words, they get admiration from other people. Oh, that's a prophet. Everybody wants to be a prophet. And so they have affiliated having visions or claiming to have visions or word from the Lord, quote unquote, to be raised up before people, to be lifted up before people. All right? But they've missed the importance about the presence of Alahayam. If you understand how visions work, you'll be like, you know what? I would much rather have his presence in my life 24/7 than to have a vision in a blink of an eye. All right, let's read on. Let's look at Danayah chapter 10, verse 7. And I, Danayah, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision. So this is Daniel, the prophet. He alone saw the vision. He had men there with him, but yet only he saw the vision. But a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone, and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness, meaning my vigor, my power, my strength, was turned into corruption. It was gone. It was destroyed. And I retained no strength. So when he had this powerful vision, it did two things. One, it caused the men around him to run away in fear. And two, it caused him to lose his strength and pass out. And that's because Yahweh came down onto the earth. It came down in this vision that Daniel had. He came into our earthly realm. And he came down in his power. Although the men with Daniel did not see the vision of Hamashiach, they felt a change in the atmosphere which brought great fear and terror upon them. And they fled, leaving Daniel alone. Daniel saw the vision because it was meant for him alone and not for the other men who were with him. Remember when the king of Babylon had a dream which Alahayam took away. You remember that? Danayal and the three Oberite young men prayed for the knowledge and understanding of the dream. They wanted to know what the dream was and what it was all about. But it was only Danayal who received the king's dream with its knowledge and understanding by way of his own dream. All right? This is the awesomeness of Alahayam. Danayal was a prophet, and judging by the vivid dreams and visions that he had, he was also an end times prophet. The dreams and visions which he had have allowed us today to understand what will be occurring in the soon coming ends of days. Danayal's dreams and visions were so accurate that once you understand their prophetic significance, you can accurately pinpoint past historical events, which many of these dreams have been fulfilled. So, based on the events in his dreams, we know that they have been fulfilled based on our history. And seeing that most of his prophetic visions have been fulfilled, it goes without saying that the remaining prophetic events will also be fulfilled, but those ones are meant for the end of time on the earth, which is our time, our era. All right? As there were dreams and visions given to the prophets concerning the end times, the prophets also received warnings concerning Yashwa'al in this manner. One thing to note, the prophets exclusively received prophetic messages through dreams, night visions, and visions. However, we know that Gentiles received the same, and they were not prophets. Just because a person has a vision or has visions does not make them a prophet. Especially today, as the office of the prophets has long been fulfilled and no longer needed. Be careful to know the source of your visions, because just like dreams that can be infiltrated by the enemy, Satan too can give his visions to weak souls. So not every vision comes from the Most High. Even though they may seem prophetic, even though they may seem scriptural, be careful to know where those dreams and visions come from. All right. Test everything. All right. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, the book of Yeshaiah, chapter 6, verse 1. In the year King Uzziah died, I saw also Yahweh sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. So he had a vision, and he was shown Yahweh himself sitting high and lifted up upon the throne. Now, he was given a vision where he saw Yahweh himself, and he still lived. That's because Yahweh shielded him. All right? He showed him only a portion of his glory. Verse 2. Above it stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings, and 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is Yahweh Sabaoth, Yahweh of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, meaning he speaks lies. He speaks things that he's not supposed to say. And I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. So the rest of the people that he was surrounded by also were liars and cheaters and speaking unrighteous things. For my eyes have seen Hamalah, seen the king, Yahweh Sabaoth. So now he's seen the vision. Now, understand this, right? Yeshaiah was not pretending that he was this righteous man. And so it was but because of his righteousness that he saw Yahweh Sabaoth. No, he proclaimed the truth I'm a man of unclean lips and I dwell in the midst of a people with unclean lips. A lot of people out there that call themselves prophets will think themselves high and mighty. I'm so pious and so righteous. That's why they're receiving dreams and visions. That's why they're able to speak, thus saith the Lord. Look at what Yeshua the prophet said. He said, I'm a man of unclean lips. Because when he beheld Alahayam in his glory, the glory that he was given to see, the glory that didn't destroy him, he recognized that he was a man of sin. He was a man filled with sin. And where does sin come out? How do you express your sinful nature? Through your words. Through your words. So he proclaimed correctly. And yet, Alahayam gave him this awesome vision. Just like the two visions that I had when I was a sinner. He does not wait for us to become so pious and holy and righteous in order to give us a vision. He can give us a vision anytime he chooses to give us a vision. Anytime at all. And look what happened to Yeshua after he made that declaration. Verse 6, then flew one of the seraphim unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongues from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this has touched your lips, and your iniquity is taken away, and your sin purged. So now he had cleansed his mouth. And not only was his mouth cleansed, but the iniquity was rolled away. His sin purged. Also I heard the voice of Yahweh saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, here I am, send me. And he said, go and tell this people, hear you indeed, but understand not, and see you indeed, but perceive not. So he sent Yeshua to be a prophet to his people. And then when you look at the ones that call themselves prophets today, you recognize that they lie. They will prophesy things that will never come to pass. And yet, people will still call them prophets. All right. Let's go to Yeshua chapter 1, book of Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. The vision of Yeshua, the son of Amawatz, that's Amos, which he saw concerning Yahweh and Yerushalayim in the days of Uzziah, that's Uzziah, Jotham, Jotham, Ahaz, that's Ahaz, and Hezekiah. I've got to think about that one for a minute. That's Hezekiah, kings of Yahweh. So he was the prophet in the days of these kings. All right, the kings of Yahweh. Now, when Yeshua saw the vision of Yahweh sitting upon his throne, that was the mantle now being bestowed upon him to be the prophet. But even before that, he was already having visions. Just like if you think back, if you're a person that received visions, if you think back on your life, you will recognize that you've had visions even from the time you were young. But you didn't know what they were. I can remember my visions from my youth. All right? Because when you are a person chosen with this gift, that you're born with it, you don't automatically get it just because you become a believer. You just only start to understand what it is when you become a believer. However, you are born with this gift. Even while you are a sinner, you have this gift. And some people use this gift for evil intentions, and some people use this gift for righteous intentions. They become believers because they recognize, just like Yeshua, that they are people of unclean lips. They are wretches, and they want to turn their lives around. All right? Not all the prophets of old would declare that they had a dream or a vision, but they would speak, saying, "Thus says Yahweh." They uttered these words because they did have a vision, where Alahayam spoke to them, telling them to speak the exact words given to them. It was for this reason why they prefaced their message with, "Thus says Yahweh." They spoke as if Yahweh was speaking through them, as if he was actually saying the words, but they were speaking the words on his behalf. To the people listening, not using their own words or summarizing what he said, but speaking verbatim all that he said. Alahayam would also give his prophets his rawak to make sure that his messages were delivered verbatim, not missing a word or altering his message. He spoke it to their ear first, then sent his servants to repeat his message or messages to Yahshua. Now, these messages were not always happy messages, but those of warnings, judgments, and at other times he sent encouragement. There are some people today who claim that they receive a word from the Most High and even written it down. Then they proceed to speak as if they are a prophet, giving false hope to people who are doomed because of their unrepentant sin. Alahayam does not speak through people like prophets in this way anymore. Therefore, these ones speaking as if they are prophets with a direct word from Alahayam are false prophets. He has created a perfect way in which he can speak to us directly like the prophets of old, because we have Ruach HaKadosh who speaks to us individually. So when we become believers, we believe in his Son, our sins are remiss, he releases Ruach HaKadosh to us, and now he speaks to us directly. We don't need to hear from a man or a woman saying, "Thus says Yahweh," or "Thus says Yahuwah," or "Thus says the Lord." We don't need that, because he can speak to us directly for ourselves, to us and for our own benefit. But people read the Bible and they don't understand the dispensation of time. They don't understand the era in which the prophets were used compared to today. All right. Let's read on. He has created the perfect way. Okay, read that already. Yes, Alahayam can send his word to get the attention of his people, but not to sound like the prophets of old, but rather to teach the truth. So he can and will use people, even give them dreams, give them visions, give them a word, but it is to teach. All right, it is to teach so that the people know, have knowledge, or have access to knowledge. But it's not to prophesy like our forefathers of old, because all the prophecies that need to be spoken have already been spoken. What we need now today is understanding. Okay? Understanding of the prophecies. They're hidden. They are mysteries. And you have to have a prophetic gift in order to understand prophecy. But you're still not a prophet. I'm not a prophet. I've never been a prophet. Yeah, I have dreams and visions. And I would never profess myself to be a prophet. Never. Even back in the day when I was in the church, someone called me a prophet. I said, no, I'm not a prophet. All right. Let's go to the book of Numbers, book of Ba chapter 22, verse 22. And Alahayam's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of Yahweh stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now, this is speaking of Balaam, excuse me, Balaam, the false prophet, who was called upon by Balak, and instead of going, he ran away. He got on his donkey, got his servants, and he ran away. So now Alahayam sent his son as the angel of Yahweh to stand in the way, stand in the gap, to stop him, or rather to destroy him. So let's see what happened. Now he was riding upon his donkey. Okay, let's read from the beginning again. And Alahayam's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of Yahweh stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his donkey, and his two servants were with him. And the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And the donkey turned aside out of the way and went into the field. Now the donkey was seeing this, having a vision. The donkey was seeing the angel of Yahweh. All right, not Balaam and not his servants. And Balaam smote the donkey to turn her into the way. But the angel of Yahweh stood in the path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side and a wall on that side. And when the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh, she thrust herself onto the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. And the angel of Yahweh went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn, either to the right hand or to the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh, she fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the donkey with a staff. And Yahweh opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, what have I done unto you that you have smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the donkey, because you mocked me. I would there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you. And the donkey said unto Balaam, am I not your donkey upon which you have ridden ever since I was yours unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto you? Have I ever done this before to you? No. And he said, no. Then Yahweh opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of Yahweh standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. And the angel of Yahweh said unto him, wherefore have you smitten your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand you, because your way is perverse before me. You're wicked, Balaam. I was coming to kill you. I was coming to destroy you. And the donkey saw me and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain you and saved her alive. And Balaam said unto the angel of Yahweh, I have sinned, for I knew not that you stood in the way against me. Now therefore, if I displease you, I will get me back again. And the angel of Yahweh said unto Balaam, go with the men, but only the word that I shall speak unto you, that you shall speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. So he turned back and he went back with the princes of Balak. It was because of these events with the angel of Yahweh, who was Hamashiach, that he went with the princes of Balak. Balaam went with the princes of Balak to see him. And kind of redundant there. To see Balak. Notice that only the donkey was able to see the angel of Yahweh, not Balaam, the self-proclaimed prophet, and certainly not his 2 servants who were with him. Eventually, Yahweh opened up his eyes to see his son Hamashiach standing before him. Yahweh used a Gentile to bless his people Yasha'al by giving him the vision and the word to do so. So in order for Balaam to see Hamashiach, he had to give him the power to do so by opening his eyes, and that was a vision. All right? Let's go to Bamidbar, chapter 24, verse 2. And Balaam lifted up his eyes, and he saw Yasha'al abiding in their tents according to their tribes, and Harawak of Alahayam came upon him. Now the power, again, the power came upon Balaam, a false prophet, right? Because Alahayam, Yahweh, was using Balaam to bless his people. You see, when somebody send someone to curse you, they can't curse you, you know. If you're in right standing with the Most High Yahweh, no enemy can come against you, and no one can curse you. You can see what happened when Balaam tried to curse Yasha'al. Verse 3. The power of Yahweh came upon him. All right? The power of Yahweh came upon him because now he is no longer in control of the words coming out of his mouth. Verse 3. And he took up this parable, now sentence of ethical wisdom, a proverbial saying, and said, Balaam the son of Beor has said, and the man whose eyes are open has said, he has said, which heard the words of Alahayam, who saw the vision of Hashaddai falling into a trance, but having his eyes opened. All right? He can only speak what Alahayam put in his mouth to speak. He couldn't say anything else. He couldn't curse his people, couldn't curse Yasha'al. Balaam was sent by Barak to curse Yasha'al. Balaam was a false prophet for hire and not a prophet of Alahayam. Yet Alahayam used him to speak blessings over his people instead of the curses which Balak wanted. The word trance was not of the original text, but it was added later on. So this was an addition to the scripture. All right? That word trance. Because he did not go into a trance. He had a vision. All right. However, trance here is not the same as what Adam and Abraham experienced, but it was a vision, an open-eye vision, which caused Balaam to utter Alahayam's blessings over Yasha'al. And here is the third blessing he uttered over Yasha'al, and I have to read this. Bamidbar chapter 24, verse 5. How goodly are your tents, O Yaokab, and your tabernacles, O Yasha'al, as the valleys are they spread forth as gardens by the river's side, as the trees of lying aloes which Yahweh has planted, and as cedar trees beside the waters. He shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. Alahayam brought him forth out of Matzarayam. He has, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. He shall eat up the nations, his enemies, and shall... let me read that again. He shall eat up the nations, his enemies, and shall break their bones and pierce them through with his arrows. He crouched, he lay down as a lion, and as a great lion, who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blesses you, and cursed is he that curses you. And Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he smote his hands together. And Balak said unto Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have altogether blessed them these 3 times. You see? Let's go to Yeshaiah chapter 1, verse 2. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for Yahweh has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knows his owner, and the donkey his master's crib, but Yashua does not know. My people do not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken Yahweh. They have provoked the Holy One of Yashua unto anger. They are gone away backwards. So as Alahayam can send a person, a false prophet, with his word to bless his people, he can send his prophet to also bring judgment, speak judgment against his people. All right? Words of punishment. As Yahweh can bless his people, so too can he judge them and proclaim their punishments and curses. And we have witnessed that his servants, the prophets, being used to make these proclamations. So we know Jeremiah, Yahazakaal, Danayah, they've all been prophets that spoke prophetically, yes, and most of the time, especially with Yasha'oya and Yahazakaal and Jeremiah, those three, the others as well, don't get me wrong, but these are the three major main prophets that spoke especially to the southern kingdom, all the things that they were doing that were wrong. And if they don't change their ways, they will be punished. They will be enslaved. In fact, they were enslaved. You know, he spoke through Baruch. He spoke through Nehemiah. He spoke through Ezra, who is Ozarah. He spoke through so many different prophets to warn our people. But would they listen? No, they will not. No, they would not. And no, to this day, they're still not listening. All right? We also notice that it was because of the visions the prophets received which enabled them to speak according to the word of Alahayam. There was a time in our forefathers' history when Alahayam withdrew himself from his people, and there were no open visions. Why? Because his people, especially the leadership of Yasha'al, were rebelling against him. And so Alahayam had to raise up another leader, his prophet, from his youth to serve him. So even the high priests in those days were permitting a lot of sinful things to go on, not only in the land, but also in the temple. You're talking about Eli, his sons, all the wicked things they were doing in the tabernacle, in the temple, actually, in the temple. Okay? And Alahayam said, enough is enough. I'm going to just raise me up a new prophet. I'm going to raise him from a youth. All right? Let's go to 1 Shamawa'al, that's Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. And the child Shamawa'al ministered unto Yahweh before Olai. And the word of Yahweh was precious in those days. There was no open vision. So the word was precious, meaning he was not speaking to anyone. And open eye vision, it was finished for now. And it came to pass at that time, when Olai was laid down in his place, and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see, so he went blind. Spiritually blind and physically blind. And before the lamp of Alahayam went out in the temple of Yahweh, where the ark of Alahayam was, and Shamawa'al was laid down to sleep, that Yahweh called Shamawa'al, and he said, here am I. Now, the lamp of Alahayam is supposed to be burning continuously. But the light, the glory of Alahayam was decreasing drastically. Not just in the temple, but in the land. And before the lamp went out, Alahayam gave them one more chance, using a young boy named Shamawa'al. to raise him up to be the prophet and the priest in place of Olai, who is Eli or Eli. Verse 7, we're going to drop down to verse 7. Now Shama'al did not yet know Yahweh, neither was the word of Yahweh yet revealed unto him. So when Alahayam called him, he thought it was Olai calling him, and he would go run into Olai. And Olai said, "You are hearing someone calling you? It's not me. Next time when you hear the voice," this was the third time, "say these words." He told him what to say. So let's drop down now to verse 10. And Yahweh came and stood and called as at other times, "Shamawa'al, Shamawa'al." Then Shamawa'al answered, "Speak, for your servant hears." So instead of running to Olai, Olai gave him these words to say, because Olai recognized that it was Yahweh calling Shamawa'al. Let's read on. Verse 11. And Yahweh said to Shamawa'al, "Behold, I will do a thing in Yashwa'al, at which both the ears of everyone that hears it shall tingle." Man, I'm going to make them snort. In other words, I'm coming with vengeance against my people. In that day I will perform against Olai all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. I started and I'm going to finish it. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knows, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. Therefore I have sworn unto the house of Olai that the iniquity of Olai's house shall not be purged with sacrifice nor offering forever. In other words, they are doomed for utter destruction, and they're going to end up in the lake of fire along with Eli. Why? Because he knew what was going on and he chose not to correct his sons. So his sin, his iniquity, his transgressions, they could not be purged with sacrifice forever. Sacrifice and offering forever. Alahayam turned his back on them because he was getting ready to destroy them all. Olai and his sons. Wipe them out. Shamawa'al became one of the most feared prophets in our forefathers' time. He was not merely a prophet, but he also acted in a priestly capacity. It was through Shamawa'al that visions were restored and the word of Alahayam returned to his people. Without the word of Alahayam and his visions given to his prophets, Habana Yashwa'al suffered great loss. How else was he able to communicate to them? Because Ruach HaKodesh was not given to every single person at that time. He only fell upon selected people. So this was Alahayam's way of getting his word to his people through his prophets. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 29 verse 18. Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keeps the law, happy is he. So if you keep the law, you're going to be blessed. And the problem with the people in those days, they weren't keeping the law. They were breaking his commandments. And so there was no vision. And that's what caused the people to perish. Now it can be understood that visions are not merely given as a form of entertainment, but true visions were given and still are given to communicate a strong message to the recipient, even if that message is to be passed on. The visions of Alahayam are not frivolous, but true visions will impact a person's life forever. And whenever they share their testimony, those listening will also be impacted as well. A few things will change. Let me read that again. A few will change their path of life to return to Alahayam, and this is the way in which his word, whether directly or indirectly, will affect a true believer. The prophets of old received deeply profound visions compared to the visions we receive today. We are living in a different dispensation of time where we have Ruach HaKodesh freely, while our forefathers experienced him in a limited capacity, and so their experiences with visions were deeply intense. Let's go to Yahazakal, book of Ezekiel again, chapter 11, verse 24. Afterwards, Harawak took me up and brought me in a vision by Harawak of Alahayam unto Chaldea, to them of the captivity. So the vision that I had seen went up from me. Let me read that again. So the vision that I had seen went up from me. Then I spoke unto them of the captivity all the things that Yahweh had shown me. All right. So Ruach HaKodesh was the one who brought him into the vision. And then after the vision was taken up, meaning the Ruach HaKodesh has, let me repeat that. Let me change that. When you look at the phrasing, so the vision that I had seen went up for me, doesn't mean that it was taken away from him. It meant that he came out of the vision. All right? So Ruach HaKodesh brought him into the vision, and then he was taken out of the vision. And once he was taken out of the vision, then he was able to speak to the captivity all the things that he witnessed in the vision, all the things that Yahweh showed him. It was a message to the people, the ones in captivity, and Yahazakal as well, because he was part of the captivity. We are in the end times. The judgments have increased in their intensity and frequency, and will continue to do so until the rule of evil is put away forever. We are experiencing more dreams and visions, and they will intensify until the day of our regathering. This will also be the chosen way, once again, especially for the Gentiles, who he will preserve to bring into his kingdom. The ones he will preserve to bring into his kingdom, he will be giving them dreams and visions to help them to be preserved on the earth during the great tribulations that are coming, the troubles that are coming upon this earth. The Gentiles will need his instructions in order to survive the great tribulations coming on this earth. It will be because of their obedience to Yahweh's instructions that they will indeed make it to the white throne judgment to receive their just rewards, whether his kingdom or the lake of fire. So they'll make it to the millennium reign. Of course, eventually they will die out. But if they lived righteously before Yahweh, they will be able to go before the white throne judgment, go before the white throne for judgment to receive their just rewards. All right? Whether his kingdom or the lake of fire. All right? So either they will receive the reward of eternal life or eternal death. They will have plenty of time to choose Alahayam. He will give them all that, just like he gave to our people, all the opportunities and the tools to make the right choice. But it will come down to them making the right choices. That's what it's going to come down to. All right. Let's look at Yahazakal, book of Ezekiel, chapter 12, verse 21. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, what is that proverb that you have in the land of Yashrael, saying, the days prolonged and every vision fail? Meaning, well, we heard of the visions that our forefathers had, and they haven't come to pass. They failed. Tell them, therefore, thus said Yahweh Alahayam. And mind you, those were our people back in the day that were saying these things. And our people today are still saying those things. Let's hear what Yahweh Alahayam says. I will make this proverb to cease. I'm going to stop this proverb. And they shall no more use it as a proverb in Yashwa'al, but say unto them, the days are at hand and the effect of every vision. So the days are here. And every vision is going to come into effect. Verse 24, for there shall be no more any vain vision or flattering divination within Habana Yashwa'al. So all these false prophets amongst Yashwa'al, speaking lies. All right. There'll be no more. You know why? Because Alahayam is going to destroy those false prophets. You open your mouth to speak like a prophet. No, I'm not talking about the Gentiles. I'm not talking about these pagan churches out there. I'm talking about Yashwa'al now. I'm talking about the southern kingdom. And when the northern kingdom is awakened, them too. So anybody that open their mouth and claim to be a prophet, he's going to destroy. Now, let me explain something else to you. There are a lot of people professing to be us. They may look like us, meaning they may look like Negroes, but that does not necessarily mean that they are. They could be first generation, second generation, all right? Or they could be from an African nation. Remember, Africans look like us somewhat, not entirely. All right? So if you claim, and I've seen this with a lot of people that, profess to be prophets, and I can tell because Ruach HaKadosh speaks to me. He said, that person is not of me. They are not even of Yashwa'al because they are first generation of mixed heritage. All right? They may have a mother that is from Yashwa'al or maybe a Negro. Let me make it plainly. And their father from another nation, non-Yashwa'al, non-Negro, even African. That means that the offspring is first generation Gentile. They're non-Yashwa'al because they're first generation of mixed heritage. You have to be of third to fourth generation. Generally fourth generation. There's an exception to be third generation. But fourth generation, in order to come back into the heritage of Yashwa'al, to be counted as Yashwa'al. So you cannot be of mixed parentage and think that you are Yashwa'al. And that's why the punishment will not fall upon them yet. Because Alahayam will treat them like Gentiles. But we're talking about people that are Yashwa'al of the fourth generation. Okay? Those are the ones. If they are professing to be prophets and proclaiming lies and deception, Alahayam is going to wipe them out. He's going to completely destroy them. No more flattering divination. It's over. For I am Yahweh, I will speak, and the word that I will speak shall come to pass. It will be no more prolonged. For in your days, O rebellious house, I will say the word, I will perform it, says Yahweh Alahayam. Verse 26. Again, the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, behold, they of Habana Yashwa'al say, the vision that he sees is for many days to come. And he prophesies of the times that are far off. You see, that's how our people are. Oh, the word that they're speaking is about the end times, and we have a long time before the end times come. We're already in the end times. All right? We're already in the end times. Verse 26. Therefore say unto them, thus says Yahweh Alahayam, there shall none of my words be prolonged any more, but the word which I have spoken shall be done, says Yahweh Alahayam. So now he is saying, you see all these prophecies that you've been hearing about, they're going to come to pass in your time, in this era. All right. We have heard from people today who either believe in the false doctrine concerning a rapture of the Gentiles, or they are believing a second exodus into the wilderness for the southern kingdom, or all 12 tribes of Yashraal. These are the self-proclaimed prophets like Balaam. These are the ones that are proclaiming these things. Anytime you hear anybody talking about the second exodus, mark them as a false prophet, because Alahayam, Yahweh, did not speak to them. It's a lie. But unlike Balaam, these false prophets will continue uttering their lies and deception until the day of their destruction, and many brethren will follow them to be destroyed. Remember what Alahayam said? All these people with flattering divination, I'm going to destroy. And the reason why people want to believe these lies is because they don't need to do anything with their inner self. Anything else, they have to clean up their act. They have to repent. They have to turn from their wicked ways. They don't want to do that. They just want to pack their Georgie bundles and jump on a ship and go on a second exodus in the wilderness somewhere on a ship. The ship will take them to a wilderness somewhere. Unbelievable. Anyways, let's read on. It is because of these false prophecies and false doctrines why people are misled to believe in false dreams and false visions given by false prophets as proof of these false events. Do you understand? All false. All false. And then there are others who believe that there will be a long, long while before we see the end of this world as it is today. Because they love this world. They love technology. They can't imagine life without technology. They love having to get that salary and be able to go buy things and doing the luxury items, and they just love this life. They don't want to see the ending of it. That's why they're hoping that they have another 50 years in this world, 10 years even. All right. For those who are seeking Yahweh and walking in his ways, he will reveal his word to them in dreams and visions, and increasingly so. This will be the great outpouring of Ruach HaKodesh like we have never experienced before, limited to only those who belong to him, whether of Yashraal or the Gentiles. So there's a great outpouring that is going to come. In fact, it is going to start. It has started, but it will increase until it is going to be so obvious that there is a great outpouring of Ruach HaKodesh. It will be more evident to see it with the northern kingdom, not so much with the southern kingdom. Why? Because the northern kingdom, they're going to have to go through some very intense sufferings, persecution. Us, the southern kingdom, we've had years to stew in Ruach HaKodesh, to stew in his power and in his might. We have been continuously given dreams and visions. There are times when you get many visions, many dreams, and then there are times it feels like it's a little bit dry. But we're seeing now that it's becoming more and more consistent. But yet it is not intense, because we've had years of this, years of dreams, years of visions. And not only that, but we're coming out from a time of the apostles who were the disciples of Hamashiach. You see, we have something to fall back on. When we have something to look back on, rather. We have something, someone to look back on. And that's the history of when Hamashiach was here on the earth the first time. And he came with the word. He came with his light to bring the people out of their darkness. And he shared that light with his apostles, who then became his witnesses, which we now are receiving the benefits of what they have done. Now, when you think about the northern kingdom that are hidden, that are still living like Gentiles, they have nothing. And when they awaken, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Get ready, get ready, get ready. You're going to be destroyed if you don't get ready. So the visions and dreams that they're going to get is going to be so intense, because it's going to be like rapid fire. They're going to have it that way, so that they can stay on top and not be destroyed completely. But it's not going to be really like that for us, because we've had years upon years. And it's just that sometimes it's low. Our dreams, the dreams that we receive or don't receive, could be almost nil, nothing. And then there are other days where, oh wow, I had a pretty consistent week of dreams. I've had my dry spell for months. And I'll have a dream here and there, nothing of great significance. And then, bam, it gives you a very significant dream. All right? But we have this ebb and flow of dreams and visions because we have access to Rawak HaKadosh and all the prophecies and the gospel that was written down for us. We have access to that. And if we adhere to what we learn through Rawak HaKadosh, we really don't need all these dreams and visions, because it is already written down. Our instructions are already written down. We now are coming into the knowledge of it. And we've had time to do so. The Northern Kingdom, they're only going to have 3.5 years. Seriously, 3.5 years to get their act together, to get their house in order, to get ready to go on their second Exodus. To choose Alahayam Yahweh, to believe in Hamashiach, so that he can release his Rawak onto them. Rapid fire. Things are going to happen to them so quickly and so profoundly. But it's not going to happen like that for us. The only thing that's going to be sudden for us is when we're taken off this earth. And even that, there's going to be something that's going to happen before that will alert us it is time. And that will be the 3 days of darkness. All right? So let's read Yawa'al, the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 28. And it shall come to pass afterwards that I will pour out my ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and the handmaids in those days will I pour out my ruach. Now, he's not talking about everybody. He's talking about the people that belong to him. Only the selected ones that belong to him will he pour out his ruach, his spirit. All right, and that is going to be predominantly for the northern kingdom, because we already have Ruach HaKodesh. All right, and he's already speaking to us on the inward parts, and he's making his word clear for us to know and to understand. So this statement is primarily for the northern kingdom, and after the northern kingdom is regathered, then it will be for the Gentiles that belong to Alahayam Yahweh. He will also pour out his ruach upon them, and they too will receive dreams, intense dreams and visions, because they need to know where to go, where to hide, where to find food and water. Okay? So that's it for this study. Now we're going to conclude with the blessing for Yashwa'al, taken from Ba chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. That's Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. Yabarakak Yahweh wa Yashamarak. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wa yachanak. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Yasha'a Yahweh panayo alayak wa yashamlak shalawam. May Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And now we're going to recite the command we were instructed to recite when we sit down, when we lie down, when we get up, when we go out, and when we come in, taken from the Barayam chapter 6, verses 4 and 5, and that's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. Shama o Yashwa'al, Yahweh Alahayana, Yahweh Ahad, wa Ahabav Av, Yahweh Alahayak, Bakal Babak, wa Bakal Napashat, wa Bakal Ma'adak. Hear, O Yashwa'al, Yahweh our Alahayam is one Yahweh, and you shall love Yahweh your Alahayam with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And with that I will say, Shalawam, Shalawam, all praises to the Most High, Abba Yah.